My parents humiliated me at my brother's wedding, but they didn't know I was the owner of the company catering the event. So I ordered my staff to pack everything up and leave, leaving 300 guests without food that I've always dreamed of being. Self-employed, that's why I started a catering business. It all began with a small food truck back in my college years, and over time it grew into a full-scale catering company with over 50 employees, serving elite events all across Chicago. I worked incredibly hard to build this. Sleepless nights, sacrifices, relentless persistence. It took me nearly 10 years, but I'm truly proud of what I created. This context is important to understand what happened last weekend at my younger brother Mark's wedding, which turned into a complete disaster. Just for context, I haven't spoken to my family in almost 6 years. My mom died when I was 14. My dad remarried a year later, to Jane, my stepmother. From the beginning, Jane made it very clear that she didn't want any reminders of my mother around. My father, eager to move on, allowed her to erase my mom's memory from our lives. That created a lot of tension between my younger brother. Mark, who was only 10 at the time, got very close to Jane. For me, it was hard to accept her sudden, controlling presence in the house. That's when things started to fall apart between me and my dad. We started drifting apart. The real breaking point came during my college years. I was juggling multiple part-time jobs to pay for school because my dad refused to help financially, saying I needed to learn responsibility. Meanwhile, he fully paid for Mark's tuition at an expensive private university. The double standard was too obvious to ignore. Jane always treated me with contempt and took every chance to belittle my efforts while I was building my catering business. She often called it playing food truck, while praising Mark's real career in finance. After college, I barely kept in touch with them, only occasionally showing up for a holiday. The final straw came 6 years ago. I found out that my dad and Jane had sold our family home without even telling me. I only learned about it after they had already moved. Everything that belonged to my mom, the things I wanted to keep, was gone. When I confronted my dad about it, he told me I was being too emotional and that it was time to move on. That's when I cut contact with them completely, last month. I unexpectedly received an official invitation to Mark's wedding. It came with a handwritten note from him, saying he missed me and wanted to rebuild our relationship. After a lot of thought, I decided to give us a second chance. Despite everything that had happened in our family, I felt like it was worth trying. As a goodwill gesture, I even offered to provide catering for the wedding at a steep discount. But Mark politely declined, saying they had already hired another company. It stung a little, but I let it go. The wedding was held at a beautiful venue in Lake Forest. I arrived cautiously optimistic. Mark genuinely seemed happy to see me, and I felt relieved. But Jane? Her attitude hadn't changed one bit. The moment she saw me, she threw out a couple of snide comments about my appearance and my business. I ignored it and tried to enjoy the ceremony, and I have to admit, it really was beautiful. But the table assignments told a different story. I was seated far from the immediate family, at a table with distant cousins I barely knew. It felt like a subtle way of reminding me that I still wasn't truly part of this family. And then, during the reception, everything went to hell. My father, clearly drunk, walked over to my table and suddenly started going off on me. He accused me of showing up uninvited, even though the invitation was literally in my pocket, and loudly announced that I was a disgrace to the family. He said I was ruining Mark's big day just by being there. Before I could even respond, Jane jumped in, fake smile and all, and asked me how much I was earning these days playing restaurant owner. Then she commented on my suit, hinting that it was probably too expensive for someone like me. Their audacity was unreal. Instead of lashing out or defending myself, I made a decision. I quietly left. There was no point arguing, especially with my father drunk and Jane clearly enjoying every moment of trying to belittle me. I was walking to my car when I noticed the catering staff setting out the main course. A few of them looked familiar. Then it hit me. Those were my employees. That's when I realized something huge. The catering company my brother had hired for the wedding had recently been acquired by my business. The previous owner stayed on as manager, so I hadn't been directly involved in the event, but legally, the company and the service at this wedding were under my control. I immediately called my operations manager to confirm what I suspected, and yes, it was our contract. I remembered my dad calling me a disgrace, saying I was ruining the wedding just by being there. So I made a decision. If my presence was that offensive to them, surely they wouldn't want my company serving their guests either. I gave the order to shut everything down and pull out. Within 15 minutes, 25 of my employees had packed up all the food, equipment, and supplies, loaded them into trucks, and left the venue. Chaos started almost immediately. 300 guests were suddenly left without dinner. People began to notice something was seriously wrong. Plates weren't being served. Staff had disappeared. The buzz in the room shifted into confusion. Damn, why father tried to intervene, but it was already too late. The contract they had signed, back when the company still belonged to the previous owner, included a clause that allowed us to terminate service in the event of hostile or discriminatory behavior toward our staff or management, and that's exactly what happened. Before leaving, I handed my business card to the venue manager and told her that if my father had any questions about payment, he could contact my attorney. The fallout came quickly. By morning, my phone was blowing up with messages from relatives, accusing me of being selfish and petty. Mark sent me a long message saying I had ruined his wedding and proven that Jane was right about me all along. As expected, my father threatened to sue for breach of contract. I forwarded all communication to my lawyer and blocked their numbers. But something unexpected happened. Messages started rolling in from some of the wedding guests. To my surprise, a few of them took my side. They had seen how my father and Jane treated me and were shocked by their behavior. One of Mark's friends, who had previously used my company for his own event, even messaged me to apologize and said he was impressed by how quickly and professionally my team handled the situation. That support was unexpected. But it reminded me, not everyone in that family was blind to what really happened. Soon, I started hearing that the story of what happened at Mark's wedding was spreading, especially among his co-workers and mutual friends. Apparently, Jane had been telling a different version of the events, one that made me out to be the villain. But the truth was out there. Her carefully curated image started to crack. I spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that had happened. And honestly, I didn't feel guilty that I didn't crash their wedding. I didn't cause a scene. I was invited and received nothing but disrespect in return. They chose to humiliate me. All I did was exercise my legal right to withdraw services. Nothing personal, just business. If they didn't want me there, then they didn't want my services either. Simple. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been dragged back into a family drama I had worked so hard to escape that I kept wondering, did I go too far? Or did they truly deserve it? Either way, the situation kept gnawing at me, so I decided to share my story here, hoping to hear what others think. Were my actions justified? Update 1. Thank you all for the overwhelming support. I genuinely didn't expect this story to blow up the way it did, but I'm incredibly grateful for every kind comment and message. The volume of responses was intense, and while I tried to reply to as many as I could, it became exhausting fast. Still, reading your perspectives helped me view the situation from different angles. Many people asked about the legal side, and whether my father and Jane actually planned to sue me. Short answer, yes, they threatened to. Here's what's happened. Since the wedding fiasco, right after it all went down, I contacted my attorney to get ahead of any potential legal fallout. We reviewed the contract between my catering company and the former owner, the one that was signed either by Mark or their wedding planner. Good news. The contract is rock solid. There's a clause that allows us to terminate service in the event of hostile or discriminatory behavior toward any staff or management. We added that clause years ago specifically for situations that could spiral out of control. To cover all our bases, I also contacted the venue manager. She confirmed that the security cameras had captured everything. The video clearly shows my father walking up to me. Even though the audio wasn't perfect, it was enough to confirm that he was verbally aggressive. Jane's nasty comment also made it onto the footage. It was clear enough to demonstrate genuine hostility, which gave me full justification to pull out of the event. With that kind of evidence, I felt confident in our legal footing. A few days later, my attorney sent a formal letter to my father's lawyer outlining the situation. We explained everything, the contract terms, the video evidence, and made it clear we were prepared to defend our position. At first, I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, I underestimated how petty and vindictive Jane can be. Yesterday, my father's attorney responded with a demand for a full refund of the catering fee. They also threatened to sue for damages, claiming I had ruined the wedding and caused irreparable harm. They wanted compensation not just for the food, but for the entire event. Obviously, I wasn't going to cave. After discussing it with my lawyer, we decided to offer a settlement, but on our terms. We agreed to refund 50% of the deposit, under two conditions. They sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, no public discussion of the incident, no negative online reviews. They sign a liability waiver, no future claims or lawsuits against me or my company. We sent the offer and are now waiting for a response, despite the legal back and forth. Jane was already trying to stir up trouble. A few days ago, the venue manager called to inform me that Jane had attempted to leave negative reviews about my catering company online. In her posts, she claimed we sabotaged the wedding on purpose and made it all about our personal vendetta. Thankfully, the venue staff managed to block her attempts, but it was still unpleasant to deal with. My legal team is keeping a close eye on everything. If Jane continues spreading false information, we'll treat it as defamation and take appropriate action. Strangely enough, the wedding disaster actually led to unexpected benefits for my business. Several guests reached out afterward to express how impressed they were by how quickly and professionally my team responded to the situation. Some even asked about hiring us for their own events. Turns out, a public meltdown can sometimes lead to private admiration. As for Mark, my brother still hasn't contacted me directly, but he did send a message through one of our mutual cousins. In it, Mark said he felt guilty for not standing up for me. During the wedding, he admitted that he didn't want to cause problems with our dad and Jane, so he stayed silent while things spiraled out of control. He apologized and asked if we could meet and talk it over. I have mixed feelings about that. Part of me wants to give him the chance to explain, but another part of me feels like it's too late. For now, I've decided to postpone any meeting until the legal situation is fully resolved. On a personal level, I've been doing a lot of thinking. In some ways, I'm proud that I stood up for myself. My family treated me like an outsider for years, and I finally drew a line. Legally and professionally, I know I did the right thing, but emotionally, the whole situation drained me. It's hard not to feel a sense of loss. Even though I hadn't spoken to most of my family in years, Mark's wedding was supposed to be a celebration, not another chapter in this exhausting drama I never wanted any of this. The weight of it all is starting to hit me. I keep wondering what the long-term consequences will be for my relationship with the rest of the family. Will things ever go back to normal? Can I rebuild anything with Mark, or has too much damage already been done? Right now, I don't have those answers. It'll take time, and for now, I'm just focused on seeing how Jane and my father respond to our legal offer. If they agree to the NDA and release of claims, maybe we can finally put this mess behind us. If not, I'm ready to defend myself and my company. Things only got messier from their point. One of the most concerning developments was that Jane actively began trying to sabotage my business. She started calling my employees, digging for internal info about how the company operates. Thankfully, my team is loyal and knows not to engage, especially given the circumstances. We issued a company-wide notice. If anyone from my family reaches out, refer them straight to legal. But Jane didn't stop there. She began contacting some of my professional contacts on LinkedIn, spreading false claims that I had intentionally ruined her son's wedding. It's one thing to be angry. It's another to try and destroy someone's career. Jane clearly crossed a line. As soon as we found out, my attorney sent her a formal cease and desist letter. We are taking it seriously, because at this point, her behavior borders on defamation. Meanwhile, something completely unexpected happened with Mark. I wasn't expecting much from him after the wedding, but apparently, the fallout from the drama reached his marriage. Multiple mutual friends and cousins told me that Mark and his new wife had already had their first major argument over what happened at the wedding. Turns out, she was shocked by the way my father and Jane treated me. After the wedding, she confronted Mark, saying he should have stood up for me, and that it was unacceptable to let his parents publicly humiliate his own brother. From what I heard, she told him point blank, it's time to grow a backbone and stop bending to his father and stepmother. That sparked a serious fight between them. They even postponed their honeymoon to deal with it. I don't know all the details, but it's clear Mark was finally forced to face reality. His beginning to reevaluate his relationship with Jane and our father, and honestly, I have mixed emotions. On one hand, it feels validating that someone else saw what I did. It warmed me to hear that Mark's wife was just as appalled by their behavior as I was. But on the other hand, I do feel bad for Mark. He's stuck in a tough spot. And while I'm angry he didn't speak up for me, I also recognize the pressure he's been under for years. That doesn't excuse it, but I understand it. He just got married, and now he's neck deep in this chaos. So legally, things are now closed. Jane and my father finally agreed to our settlement offer. After what I assume were long discussions with their lawyer, they accepted the 50% refund along with the non-disclosure and no-claims agreements. This morning, they signed all the paperwork. We issued the refund, minus costs already incurred for food, staff, and logistics. Legally, the case is done. Their lawyer's letter was cold and formal, no apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, but I wasn't expecting one. What mattered was that they accepted the terms, and now I don't have to worry about legal fallout, but the personal consequences? Still ongoing. One of the most troubling developments Jane has continued trying to undermine my business since the wedding. She's been reaching out to people in my professional network, trying to poison my reputation. She's even contacted some of my business partners through LinkedIn, falsely claiming I sabotaged her son's wedding out of spite. This isn't just pettiness. It's malice. My legal team sent her another warning, a cease and desist for defamation. We are ready to escalate if she keeps going. Oddly, though, something else came out of all this chaos. Opportunity. Several guests from the wedding reached out to compliment how my team handled everything. A few even asked about hiring us for future events. Turns out, the way we handled the crisis actually boosted our reputation. That alone made the whole disaster feel a little more bearable. And then, something I never expected, a message came from Mark's wife. She thanked me for staying calm and professional despite everything. She told me that she and Mark had started couples therapy, apparently. Mark has finally begun standing up to Jane, something he never dared to do before. They're even looking for a new place, one completely separate from Jane's influence. That news was a massive relief. They're drawing boundaries, taking control of their lives, and it gave me a strange kind of hope. His wife also mentioned they're planning a small vow renewal ceremony in a few months. They want only people they truly consider family there. That warmed my heart. Maybe they really are trying to build something healthier, something that doesn't include the toxicity of our father and Jane. Speaking of them, since signing the NDA, they've gone quiet through mutual contacts. I heard that they've started facing social consequences in their country club circles. Turns out, they'd been spreading their own twisted version of our family story for years, painting me as the villain. But now, people are starting to doubt them, and it seems their precious social standing, the thing they valued most, is finally cracking. This entire experience taught me a lot, especially about boundaries, sometimes the hardest thing, like standing your ground or cutting off toxic relatives, ends up being the most necessary. I realized that staying true to your values, even when others judge you, can lead to unexpected healing. I'm incredibly grateful for the support I received from my team, my partners, and even some family members who reached out privately to offer encouragement. And if you're in a similar situation, it's okay to walk away from toxic people. It's okay to protect your peace. You never know who you might inspire to do the same. Well, that's all. Write your opinion in the comments. Watch our previous video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, if for some reason you haven't done so yet. And good luck to you.